Tim, geez, man. First of all, this segment has gotten a little bit just more and more bleak every time we talk.
Listen, it ain't Wendy's fingers firing up. What's going on in Dallas? No, it's what's going on in Dallas.
Oh,
Two thumbs
man.
down.
The NBA is investigating the actions of the Dallas Mavericks at the end of the season for what looks like potentially tanking. So,
Oh, wow, you were polite.
I didn't say it.
Oh, you're investigating tanking. Well, this one team might be tanking. Okay, cool. Nobody else, right? That's part of it. So let's be honest. I'm going to read you the statement, but the honest thing is they are investigating transparently tanking. They are investigating brazen, blunt honesty. Like Jason Kidd all but called it a tank.
We're trying to build a championship team. And sometimes you got to take a step back and understanding, again, with this decision, this is maybe a step back, but hopefully it leads to going up forward.
He admitted on the record, didn't use that word, but he admitted it. Which it's either admit it or, just lie to everybody's face. But they're not alone in this. There were a lot of teams tanking. For instance, Salt Lake City, you could say, did that if you look at their injury report and the way things played out late in the season. It's just the way it is. Mike Bass, NBA spokesman, the statement is the NBA commenced an investigation today into the facts and circumstances surrounding the Dallas Mavericks roster decisions and game conduct with respect to Friday night Chicago Bulls Mavericks games, including the motivations behind those actions. Well, gee whiz, this should be a long investigation, because why would the Mavericks be motivated to not beat the Bulls in a game that would eliminate the Mavericks from playing contention when it broke a tie for the 10th best lottery odds and the Mavericks owed the New York Knicks a top 10 protected pick? This should be, probably better bring the FBI in on this one. This is a tough one to figure out. Come on.
do you think it's more important, to strategize than the public harm that comes from tanking, the fans who may be disappointed?
Let's be honest. Mavericks fans weren't disappointed that they decided to tank the last couple of games. They're disappointed that this team went from being a 4 seed in February to being in a position where tanking was the logical move. It's not the strategy that disappointed them. It's the fact that that strategy was their best route. They just played the percentages at the end. Tanking to be 10th in the lottery odds, they now have an 80% chance to keep the pick, as opposed to like an 8-point-something% chance of moving up if they'd have been 11. The percentages are simple, but the disappointment's not the strategy, it's getting to that point.
So where does accountability fall for this Mavericks organization, Tim?
Where doesn't it? Like, let's start at the top and go on down, and everybody we're debating shares, right? We're debating shares. It's just the reality of the situation. And look, big picture here, Luka Doncic is a superstar in his 5th season. This roster is not better off than when you got him by trading up in the draft in 2018, after the previous time that you tanked, when Mark Cuban paid a $600,000 fine for actually admitting it out loud on Dr. J's podcast. And Luka, to his credit, stood up Tuesday when, by the way, he basically said, "We ain't tanking on my watch."
When there's still a chance, I'm going to play.
That was a shock, is that after he said that, the Mavericks still a few days later said, "Yeah, we are, Luka. Sorry, dude. We're going to try to make it up to you." That's basically what they're doing. Is, your feelings now aren't as important as our ability to try to add talent around you later, is essentially what the decision came down to. But look, Luka said, "I'm the leader of this team. The blame ultimately is on me," which is, it's a good thing for a leader to say. Obviously, he's down the list, but he was awful defensively. Terrible. Okay, his terrible body language is a problem, both because it prevents him from running back on defense and because, he's talking about the culture on this team is nowhere close to what it was last year. A big part of that is because when you're showing up teammates frequently, there's going to be some chemistry issues. Kyrie, we've talked about it before. I don't think Kyrie deserves much blame for the Mavs' failures. He did not create problems. He was not the problem. He was not a problem. He just wasn't a solution.
All right, well, you mentioned Luka, and there's accountability with him as well as a list of other people there. But There's been talks that Luka's unhappy, and he's come out and said, hey, I'm happy in Dallas, but something has to change. And how might this team change next year, especially with Kyrie's contract expiring?
Yeah, and a few weeks ago, Luka said he's as frustrated as he's been during his 5-year career.
It's just been so frustrating, maybe for a lot of reasons, not just basketball.
Quite simply, what I reported is there is a fear within the Mavericks organization that if they don't get this thing on the right track, that as soon as the summer of 2024, Luka might be so frustrated that he comes to the front office and says, man, it's just not going to happen here. You gotta figure something out to get me somewhere where I've got a chance to contend for championships. That's the fear. They are operating with that sense of urgency. There's no guarantee that Luka would go there. I do believe him when he says he likes Dallas, when he says he wants to be in Dallas long term. But as Mark Cuban said himself, the Mavericks have, quote, got to earn that loyalty. Huge summer. Look, they want to keep Kyrie Irving. What's the market for him going to be? Are the Lakers going to be interested? Maybe the Houston Rockets could throw a max type deal. Mark Cuban says he's the top priority, but when I said, can you be outbid? Because guess who was the top priority last year? Jalen Brunson. They didn't even try to outbid the Knicks. I'm just telling you. I said, can you be outbid? He said, I guess there's always too high of a price depending, and started talking about the new CBA, limits on building a roster. I'll say this, if they keep their pick, unless they get really lucky and vault to the top of the draft, I certainly believe that they will be aggressive shopping that pick for a veteran who can help them win right now, because they can't be in a developmental mode. They've got to be able to really be competitive immediately.
Well, can you give us a summer to try to figure that out?
There's talk about, well, should the Mavs re-sign Kyrie, considering his past behavior and how things went with other teams. But after all of this, the other side of this is, will Kyrie even want to re-sign and come back here? So where do you think that's going to end up?
Certainly would have loved to ask Kyrie his thought process entering free agency. He opted not to do an exit interview with the media, as Luka and Ed Mavericks did yesterday, which that's his right.
Food.
With Kyrie, number one, you knew who you were trading for, okay? When the Mavericks traded for him, they basically said, hey, if it doesn't work out, we'll have a pretty decent chunk of cap space. That's kind of the fallback plan. That's not a good fallback plan. You cannot lose your second leading scorer for nothing in 2 straight summers when you've got a superstar. That is a terrible, terrible way to operate as a franchise. So it's not that's a worst case scenario. It's not really a fallback plan. Could there be a situation where, Kyrie wants to go to LA or Phoenix or fill in the blank team, and his bird rights are a value you can get back, significant value in a sign and trade? These are all possibilities. All I can tell you is we'll see how things shake out. We'll get our answers in early July.